But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
What's up, Faithful? Welcome to the 49er Faithful UK Live. As always, I'm your host, Paul Hope, and today I'm joined by the main man, Lee Gowland, as we take a look at the 49ers draft class of 2024. But before we dive straight into all that, Lee, thank you for joining me. And how are you after the weekend, buddy?
I am absolutely shattered. I'm not going to lie. I mean, days 1 and days 2, didn't get to bed until 5 o'clock in the morning both days. I was up quite early again on the Saturday morning, so I didn't have that many hours in bed. I think I had 3 hours sleep before I was up again. I had quite a busy Saturday, and then I went straight into day 3 at 5 o'clock. And I think I managed to make it through to about 10:30, 11, before I was flagging. So we made the pick at 2:15. Jared Kingston and I myself, like a few others, all turned and said, you know what, that's it. I'm not going to make the last pick. I was absolutely shattered, so I went to bed. But I'm recovering slowly. I am still a little bit tired. But yeah, I'm quite pleased, actually, the way those 3 days went.
I was going to say, before we get into, obviously, looking at who we've drafted, I didn't watch any of it live, which I explained previously. So it was kind of a bit strange knowing stuff was going on. And I know you kind of set up the late night Teams calls, and then there was the Saturday Zoom call. But am I right in thinking the Saturday didn't help that every time the Niners went to announce a pick, it went to commercial break?
It wasn't just the Saturday. It was all 3 days. Every time the Niners went to make a pick, it went to the commercial breaks. It was so frustrating. And it got to the point where it was laughable, because you knew exactly when the commercial break was going to come just before the 49ers were going to make the pick. I mean, we can go into conspiracy theories, we can, but it's just too coincidental that every time the 49ers picked, we went to commercial break. So no, it didn't particularly help the flow of the meetup, the virtual meetup. Because obviously everybody had that frustration. It was like, oh, come on, make the pick. And especially between pick 135 and 215, it seemed to take forever. I think it was 2.5, 3 hours between picks. So we were just waiting and waiting. And it got to the point where there was a run on players who we thought we might have taken at 215. So all those had gone, and kind of the excitement died down a little bit. But then ramped up again once we got a little bit closer to the 215.
Yeah, it was, like I say, it was strange for me with it being Kaylee's 17th birthday weekend and we had lots planned. I was kind of dipping in and out. So I woke up Friday morning to the news of who we've drafted. So I kind of missed it was this player, and the 49ers had leaked it by accident. Then it was a different player. And so we are going to get into it all. And we're joined by some regulars in the chat. So I've got to give Mike his props. He got in 15 minutes early, Lee, to get the first comment of the night.
Yeah.
Says he's looking forward to this one. He's normally at work, so he did message me to say he's delighted he could join us live. Now, Lee, the 49ers selected 8 players. So you were correct. In our recent show, you said we wouldn't draft all of them. There'd be some moving up and down. We selected...
I actually said we'd draft 8.
You did? I was going to say... Now, people may scoff, but we take our victories where we can get them, and the 49er Faithful UK.
Right.
So we drafted 2 wide receivers, a cornerback, 2 guards, a running back, no surprise there, if you watched our show, more about that later, a linebacker, and a safety. Now, Lee, this means we did not use a draft pick on a defensive lineman for only the second time in 14 years. And I think it's safe to say no one was expecting that, were they, buddy?
No one at all. All through the draft, we were waiting for that defensive lineman to be picked, and it didn't come. So that came as a bit of a shock. I mean, to be honest, there was a few shocks There was a few shocks in the picks that we made, not just the personnel but the positions as well. I think had you been on the live on the live meeting on day one, it was an interesting gallery of faces. All looked shocked when we made that pick at 31, because not a single person on that meeting expected us to take a wide receiver.
Well, we joked when me, you, and Eric did the show last week about Peter Schrager, who predicted the Niners would take a wide receiver. I've been coining the Marvel moniker of the 14,605 mock drafts. And I'll be honest, I didn't take a wide receiver at 31 because I'd done my Luke McCaffrey no matter what. So I was always taking a wide receiver later than I did the mock draft. Now, are you telling me, Lee, that this weekend Zoom call had a Najee Karar moment? And I think you know what I'm referencing, because that was up there for the shock of the draft when you told Najee we drafted Mac Jones for Trey Lance.
Yeah.
So was there similar looks of shock with the Slick Rick pick at 31?
It wasn't. Yeah, it was. It was a stunned look. It was a stunned look from everybody that was on the call. So we tried to coordinate this time because we knew everybody's stream was a little bit out. So it was kind of, right, stick your hand up once you know who the pick is, and once the last hand went up, that's when we started talking about it. But yeah, I mean, to actually see this cascading look of complete shock when we made the pick, go through all 5 of the people who were on live on day one, it kind of told a story for the last person. But it wasn't. Was it a bad shock? It wasn't a bad shock. It was just surprise, really. Surprise that we took a wide receiver. Like I said, because of the players that were there, everybody had already gone into day one with this preconceived idea of who they wanted. And everybody was always going to be upset if it wasn't the person they wanted. I mean, I could have named probably five players who were still on the board that I would have liked us to have taken at 31, and we didn't take any of them. So I was very surprised about that, looking at our needs. I didn't think wide receiver was particularly top of our needs. But once I got to find out a little bit more about them, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Before we go into that, Eric, big friend of the show, says no D-line, despite him saying it was one of our biggest needs.
Yeah.
He's added that no wonder he's sat on this side of the line. Don't be so harsh on yourself, Eric. I think I started my mock draft last week, buddy, with death, taxes, and the Niners drafting a lineman. So there was a few of us who were taken by surprise. Red Jet Shell is loving the presence from across the pond in the chat. So I must say, the chat is on fire. Mike, with you there, so his wife's laughing at him, watching on his iPad, messaging on his phone. That shows commitment. Now, I've flown the draft picks across the bottom, Lee. So I do think it's time that we dive into this. I mean, as we said there, we were all expecting a defensive lineman, a run stuff and defensive tackle. The fans wanted an offensive lineman. And I must admit, when I got up for work at 6:45 on the Friday, first thing I did was phone on who have we drafted. And I was like, Ricky Purcell, wide receiver. So I didn't know much about him. Obviously, since the pick, I've been on YouTube, I've been watching shows like this, I've looked at the Chapman draft guide. The more I see, the more I like. But you are more into college football than me. So I think it's only fair for you to start now you've had some time to kind of digest the pick.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, there's a look of shock amongst everybody's face. I see Justin's in the chat, and he was on there for day one. He was in the meeting. Was he on the meeting for day one? It might be in day two, actually. But yeah, I mean, we're all shocked about it. But when you look at the reaction from C.J. Stroud, when C.J. Stroud was being interviewed as that pick was made, he was utterly gutted, absolutely disappointed that he'd gone to the 49ers and that the Houston Texans weren't going to pick him up. Now, when you see a quarterback, and I know he was only a rookie last season, so he's entering year two, when you see a quarterback of his quality, because he played really well last season, be that disappointed that he's not getting that receiver, it tells you That's the type of receiver that quarterback's like. And just looking at what he does, I think he's perfect, absolutely perfect for the 49ers. He's only dropped 5 passes since the beginning of 2020. His hands are absolutely solid. His route running is solid. He's got good feet. He's got good situational awareness. He can get his feet in bounds when he needs to get in bounds. He's not one of these lazy receivers who just hopes that he's in bounds. Doesn't do anything with his feet. 6'1". I think, I mean, you look at the size of our receivers at the moment. He gives us a little bit extra. So he's giving us a bit extra height. That one-handed catch was just absolutely filthy. to make that catch and take the hit, a double hit, and keep hold of the ball. Yeah, I can understand why CJ Stroud was so upset. I think Rich Eisen came out and he thinks he's got Ricky Purcell as his number 5 of draft steals. So he obviously saw the value there. But I think before we get into the rest of the picks as well, what I'll say is, like I tried to say earlier, everybody enters the draft with this preconceived idea of who we should draft. And I know Mike said it at the start. Let me get that. So he hadn't heard about a lot of the players because everybody that had been watching on YouTube, the content creators, weren't really picking these players in the mock drafts. All these content creators, and I'm guilty of this as well, not that I'm calling myself a content creator.
Yeah, you are.
When you do these mock drafts on PFF, you completely forget about who you actually want as the pick. You start looking at the grading once you finish your picks, and you're trying to get an A grade every time. And even though you think a player's not a great fit for the 49ers, but you're going to get an A grade for him at that particular spot, you pick him. And then they start talking about him, and I'm guilty of that. So all the players I was concentrating on were the ones that I was doing the PFF mock draft simulator. I didn't necessarily think we'd pick them. There was a few we'd pick. So I mean, first round, if he fell to us, I always went JPJ, because that's who I wanted. That was my draft crush in round 1. He was still there at 31, so I was absolutely gutted. And had we not gone for JPJ, there was Zach Frazier. He was still there as well. So he was my fallback, and obviously I wanted interior lineman. Made no secret of that. McKinstry, Kool-Aid McKinstry was still there. I thought he'd have done well, but he passed us by. And you can't hide that disappointment initially, but I think it's just a knee-jerk reaction until you actually learn about these players, because I may watch college football, but I don't watch the same players week in, week out. I might see them have one good game, but I'm not going to see them throughout the season. So I need to go out and I need to have a look at the highlights. I need to read about them and find out whether or not it is the type of player that the 49ers want. And like I said at the start of the show, now that I've done that, I am very happy with this draft. I am very happy indeed. What we have done is we've brought in quicker players, stronger players, and players with durability as well.
Yeah.
There's very few injury flags on any of the players that we've brought in.
Well,
and that's what I like.
I had David's comment up just before, so I'm just going to put that back on because this is where I was going to go before we dived into the individual kind of breakdown. I think the Niners, when you look at this draft, Lee, you're right. Mock drafts was something I hadn't done until a couple of years ago, and this man introduced me to them, and you get addicted to them. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills quarterback, Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee was on with, I think, the Bills general manager this afternoon, Lee, and he was saying Josh Allen's addicted to the mock draft simulator. And McAfee's like, does he want to be a general manager? He's like, no, he just loves doing the mock drafts. And I can get on board with that. And you're right, you've got to get into the mindset of what the team do. We said a couple of weeks ago, offensive lineman, cornerback is a position that Kyle Shanahan himself doesn't put a lot of stock in. He's got his scheme. He knows what he wants to do with the team. And the theme that ran throughout this draft, the more I've looked at it, is the selected players who've played a lot of college football. So they should be ready to go sooner rather than later. And they've stayed away, Lee, from guys with injury history with red flags. Yeah. We made a joke a couple of weeks ago about Trent Baalke. You coming off an ACL injury guaranteed to go in the first round, the 49ers. But it seems that this is something they've done the homework on. And you're right, you never quite know how it's going to go. I was a bit envious that I missed out on the late night draft calls because they sounded pretty fun. But overall, I'm quite impressed. Now, I was going to ask you if you've graded this draft yet, but I don't want to put you on the spot. That's not something you do.
No, that's not something I do. You can't grade a draft just after it's been drafted. You need to wait 3 years. At least give them time to develop into NFL players, because they're going through a game that is a completely different speed. They're going to players who are elite. During the college career, they'll be lucky if they've come up against half a dozen elite players. Whereas once you get the NFL, you pretty much do it week in, week out. You can't judge this draft class now. You're going to have to give them at least, like I said, 2 to 3 years. Let them bed in. Let them get up to speed. The game will slow down for them, and then we'll see what their potential is.
So, looking at the pick 31, before we move on this show, I talk a lot about Brad Graham being my go-to for offensive linemen. But when it comes to wide receivers, Jason Aponte is my go-to guy, and he is hyped for the 2 wide receivers we've taken. You said some of Slick Rick, great nickname, which I will be using on the pod because I do not want to get that young man's surname wrong. But you look at the draft guide that Chapman gave us, Lee, and he's put there, his strengths, Purcell, is his roots and his hands, catches everything, a tough player that moves the chains consistently, a willing blocker, but that's not a positive in his game. Now, John has released his first game breakdown of Slick Rick, so I watched that earlier in preparation. Some of it was well over my head, so I'm not going to try and repeat what John was saying, but it's a good watch. But the stats that I was interested in here, Lee, 34 college starts, 2022, he led the SEC in yards per reception at 20 yards per catch. He was the all-conference honorable mention, began his career at Arizona State before transferring to Florida. And the one-handed catch was magic, but what I think has sold Shanahan is he sees a bit of himself as the wide receiver in this kid. And at the end of the day, it signifies to me, buddy, a change in philosophy. They've gone for offensive players and said Brock Purdy. I think when you go back and you watch the Super Bowl, I'm not saying that we lost the Super Bowl because of Brock, and I'm not pinning the blame to the wide receivers, but I think pick 31 offers something different. I think Shanahan wants receivers who can separate, can get open, and maybe make that difference. And does that make sense where I'm going with this?
Yeah, but I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think Purcell's a lot like Ayuk because of his route running. Well, what became obvious when you watch the highlights from Purcell is the ball hits him in stride every single time. Now, you could put that down to the quarterback if you wanted to, but if you watch other wide receivers from Florida, they're not getting to the ball at the same time. His routes are absolutely timed perfectly. And what we found is watching Brock Purdy and Ayuk last year, because Ayuk is a really good route runner, he's hitting them in small windows, and he's hitting them because he can throw anticipatory throws because he knows that Ayuk's going to be where he needs to be when the ball gets there, and Ricky Purcell's going to be exactly the same. So having 2 of those, it's just going to open up so many possibilities for Shanahan, which is why I think he might move away from the philosophy of run first. And we kind of did do that towards the end of last season. We were throwing more than what we were running. So I don't particularly... I think if anybody turned around to me, not a 49er fan, said, oh yeah, the 49ers are a run first team, I'd actually correct them and say, well, we might have been. We're not anymore though. And the stats back that up as well. We're throwing the ball a lot more now. You're on mute, Paul.
See, that's because I've learned not to breathe too much in the microphone, catching up on the chat. So Red Jet Shell thanks us for the likes and love on all her photos on Instagram.
No problem, Shell. Great photos.
What I was going to say about Slick Rick, Jason did a great breakdown of his stats. So when you look at his snaps in college, he played 44.1% versus man. He had a 75% success rate. He played zone 55% of the time, and he had an 82% success rate. The worrying one for Jason was press. He only played press coverage 11%, and his success rate dropped down to 67%. So I didn't want to come on the show nightly and be all like, your thumbnail was what, the 2041 Hall of Fame draft class.
Oh,
Now
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
surprised
yeah.
no one's mentioned that yet, buddy. I did like the clickbait thumbnail.
Yeah. I mean, for our American friends, we might need to explain it a little bit because of who's actually got the fishing reel there. I don't know if you noticed who that was.
Yes, I did notice.
Yeah.
I'll let you explain.
So the guy holding the fishing rod is a guy called Paul Gascoigne, who used to play football for Newcastle, Tottenham, Lazio in England. He's from pretty much the same part of the country where we live. He's from the northeast of England. And he turned up to an armed standoff a good few years. It'll probably be about 10, 15 years ago now. He turned up to an armed standoff, an armed siege with a fishing rod and a bucket of chicken to try and help the police get this guy out of the siege. And that's why I used him, because we were fishing with the Hall of Fame class. But in all seriousness, the good thing about drafts is you pick a bunch of players and any one of those could be a Hall of Fame. You know, one year we're going to see a team have an absolute dynamite draft and most of their players get into the Hall of Fame. It can happen. It hasn't happened yet. And it very rarely does that you pick more than one Hall of Fame in the same draft. But the possibility is there because we don't know. We don't know how these players will turn out. They might all be busts. They might all be perennial Pro Bowlers. Some might make the Hall of Fame, some might not. And that's the exciting thing about them.
Well, Lee, we've had our first ever
Super chat. Wow.
super chat.
Thank you very much, Eric.
So Eric has put there that super chat is active. Now, before you speak, I thought I was going to come on the show and say, Lee, stop talking about 2041 because you've aged me by 20 years. And then as I was preparing for tonight's show, Jasmine, my delightful 13-year-old, asked if I was alive in World War II because she's got a history project that she needed some help with. Now, I know I've aged a bit since I've met you, Lee, and you've been putting me to work on all these shows, but I thought I'd share that and give everyone a laugh. So I wasn't quite around back then. David Gaza was a legend, and I think Ty likes the fishing rod and a bucket of chicken. And look,
honestly, I'm not making it up, Ty. Thank you very much, Shell. So I meant to mention this because we didn't mention it on the last show.
Yeah, because we didn't think anyone would ever do it.
Well, yeah. We hit the threshold where you can actually, what would be the word? Tip us money. And what that money will go to is actually paying for StreamYard because it comes out of our own pockets. And we hope to carry on with that. Obviously, we're doing some promotional stuff with a partner now, which we'll tell you about after pick 4. But yeah, so this is now getting us up there where it takes the pressure off us.
Yeah, Mike's put there, we've met the super chat limit to help the chaps pay. And as Shell has put in her chat, which let's get it back up. Let's have a little look. I'll scroll back up, please. See, this is the danger. So we are on the journey to getting to 2,000 subs. That is the challenge that I've set for us. So hopefully we'll go there. And to say, like bus in England, Lee, you wait for one, and then 3 come around all together.
Thank you very much, Justin. Justin, Justin was with us there. Definitely day 2. I can't remember if he was there day 1, and some of day 3 before he had to go to work. So I think Justin might have been on when we picked 135, and we'll get on about it later, obviously. But there was an interesting look on my face when that pick came in. But like I said, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we will talk especially about that one. But Justin, gutted to miss. I sent Justin a message on Discord earlier because I'd seen some of the news about some of the storms in the States, and he messaged me back to say thank you for reaching out. So you're part of the community. It's great to see. And Red Jet is flying the flag. We're going to get up to the 2K subs. But I just wanted to get your thoughts before we moved on. So Slick Rick is the nickname that's going to stick. I have a feeling Nadji may nab him for the player watch because I may have another person on the list that we might get to. But is there anything else?
I get the feeling Nadji might have to fight over who we want because I think it's going to be the same player. And Gareth might want him as well.
Well, let's
Cheers,
face
Colin.
it.
Thank you very much.
I have some breaking news. My player watch won't be Ronnie Bell. But the one thing that I wanted to say, I'd seen a few people compare Slick Rick to our offense, to how Tyreek Hill is in the Miami Dolphins offense. Now, I'm not saying player for player, pound for pound. What I'm saying is when you go watch the game tape, Purcell doesn't have that speed, but he's got great route running and he's got great separation. And I think what they mainly is in this scheme with all the motions, the misdirection, moved him across the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one thing about Purcell, mind you, his 40 time wasn't the best, but he plays quick. And I think that's the difference. You can have people who's got like a 4:25 40 time, but when it comes to actual play speed, they play a lot slower. Whereas for me, Purcell's completely the opposite. He looks as though he plays a lot quicker than what his 40 time was. And I think that means a lot, especially when you're a good route runner as well.
Well, he had the best 3-cone at the combine. And I think a lot of people said he shot up on the board.
Yeah.
And I saved a tweet earlier. I think our good friend John Chapman shared a tweet of why we like Purcell. Elite 3-cone and change direction. Great senior ball. Never missed a game in 5 years. Positionally, he's versatile. I don't think we see him in the X route, which a lot of people thought, we've drafted this kid. It means Ayuk's gone because Ayuk's our X receiver at the moment. Now, equally, my journey as a fan in the NFL league, you kind of saw the great dynasties replace players at the right time, and they always seem to stick around. I seen some talk in the chat at the weekend about it's Super Bowl or nothing, and I wanted to kind of put my own touch on that. I don't go into a season with that mindset. Maybe because I've seen 3 losses in my 13 or 14 years as a fan. But when I was doing my homework tonight, I've seen 9 different teams win the Super Bowl. And when you go back and you look at the Patriots, you look at the Chiefs, every year they seem to kind of add a piece. And then at the end of the season, you think, oh, it's really good that they've done that. Now, there was a lot of talk on social media about Ayuk and Debo. So before we move on and show some of the other picks they love, we got asked a question by Alex Simpson on Twitter. Was this the biggest win of the weekend that they're still Niners? But there's still talk, if you've seen social media today, that the Steelers are planning to jump in. So where do you stand on the Ayuk, Debo?
I think you have to say it is the biggest win. Is it the biggest win? Yes, you do. You have to, because they're established players. We know what we have with them. We know they can perform. We know they put the numbers up. So yeah, you've got to say it's the biggest win. But yeah, I mean, those rumours are not going to go away. I think potentially before the October trade deadline, we might ship them. But it all depends on how both Purcell and Cowing play.
Yeah.
Because I do think we've got at least 3 players who can make an impact on day one.
I mean, I talked about the shift of offensive identity. If you look at the moment, Lee, we've technically got 4 wide receivers. If you believe the hype, you've got Ayuk, you've got Debo, you've got Jennings, you've now got Purcell. Could we see a shift that we go to 4 receiver sets? Now, I don't know.
Yes.
It's only April the 30th, but it's an interesting conversation to have as Niners fans. And you talked about the quarterback, some of Brock Purdy's strengths, getting the ball out early, putting the ball in the middle of the field where Purcell seems to thrive, and adding that extra wrinkle to this offense isn't a bad thing in my eyes.
So yes, I can see it's going to 4 dedicated receivers, but you need to remember, when we were playing 3 receivers and Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, essentially, we had 4 receivers on the field because they could have easily just sent them out wide and there's your 4th receiver. But yeah, I mean, this time we've got 4 dedicated receivers that we can all have on the field at the same time.
So there's a question. What I love about the live show, Lee, we get put off topic. Now, I wasn't there, so you may know more than me.
Yeah, so I think both me and Brett were both guilty of having quite a few beers that night. In fact, I think Justin had quite a few beers as well, if he's honest. I think we all did, and it was a late night for us, or very early morning, like I said. And I think on day 2, Brett had to be up quite early on the Saturday morning anyway, to prepare for the Krav Maga grading on the Sunday. So yeah, I think he might have struggled a little bit.
So Eric, I agree. Justin has been an MVP. He's been shouting our show in all the chats. It's much appreciated. And he put a comment that I just want to share. So again, what we're trying to build, he loves the whole community. Oceans cannot separate the fandom. And it is great to see our friends from across the pond join us. Now, our draft experience, everyone, is a little bit different to yours due to the timing. So that's why I've spent a lot of time on Slick Rick, because I've not had anybody to talk to. I go to my office job and they're all talking English football. They had no idea what the NFL draft is. But I think we've covered 31, pick 31 for today's show.
We've definitely covered,
So next was a cornerback. So pick, go on.
Yeah. So Ronaldo Green, I like the pick, but I like the pick, but I was expecting us to go for a cornerback who could both cover and stop the run. And I think one of the weaknesses that Green has is he's not particularly good against the run. He's excellent in coverage. I mean, he's posted a 90 PFF coverage grade in 2023. When you watch him play, he sticks like glue to the receiver. He needs to keep his hands off the receiver a little bit, though. Every pretty much all the highlights I saw, he had his hands on the receiver after the 5 yards. So you might find he gets a few more flags in the NFL than what he did at college. But yeah, I mean, he's quick. He can get his hands in there. He anticipates the throw coming in. I think his only weaknesses against the run. Well, the run and the fact that he's been playing a zone heavy we play a zone heavy defense, and he's not particularly done that at college.
Well, this is why I like that we've kind of gone live a few days after the draft, and we have a reputation, buddy, for being upbeat, positive. We always think everything the Niners do is great. But we have come on this show tonight, and like you in my notes there, he's a different type of cornerback to what I was expecting. He's more of a cornerback that keeps things in front of him. As you've said, he's great in coverage. I think this signifies a change in philosophy on this side of the ball as well. Obviously, Brandon Staley's coming in. We've got our new defensive coordinator. Could we see coverage becoming more important? You know, you get to the big games against the Chiefs, Nick Bosa, the hold down getting called. And previously, our mantra had been build from the front. Doesn't quite matter at the back end. And then what they did was put the likes of Hufanga in, who were ball hawks. Now, I heard a comparison. I thought, should I save this for when our good friend Najee Carr's on the show? And I thought, no. I'll share it with my friend Lee Gowland first. So I've heard this kid compared to Jimmy Ward. Now, as soon as I heard that name, I thought Najee is going to absolutely rage. But like you said, the slight concern is he's a little grabby. But apparently, everyone seems to be buzzing that he held his own versus Malik Nabers. 16, and he had 16 forced incompletions, which is 6 in the NCAA.
Like I said, I mean, I'm assuming you've seen the highlights. He does stick to the receivers. He's very quick. He runs quick. I think he's going to be. He's definitely going to be an upgrade on Ambry Thomas. Ambry Thomas is so frustrating because he can have some brilliant games and then he can have some absolute dire games and maybe he's even cost us a game once or twice. And it's frustrating that he can't keep that consistency. Hopefully Ronaldo Green will come in and just elevate that little bit more quality and consistency in play to mean that if we need to move Lenoir into the nickel slot, then he can come in and do that. So he can come in and cover Lenoir.
So Justin has put he can do both. He just doesn't have the skills in the way that he doesn't pick out a ball. Like I said, he's not a ball hawk. And he's put fine if he gets the penalties, but that can be coachable. And he's got a new nickname for me. So he keeps calling me Pablo, which is not the first person to call me that, but it seems to be sticking. And he's going on about being handy is coachable. Now, what I've seen, I know Larry Kruger was high on this pick. Chapman's own guidebook here says that there's no issues with toughness when taking on blocks or helping out in the run game. This kid is tough. And like you said, plays way bigger than his size, which is what jumped out on the game tape that I've seen. Now, I'm not going to come on this show and say I've watched a lot of game tape. But Saturday morning, Tracy took the girls out to meet a friend and she left me home alone, Lee. So I fired up YouTube, I whacked open the laptop, and yes, I was watching game tape on all the players that we drafted so far. So I'm starting to learn a little bit. But I suppose with me not being emotionally connected to these players, it's a little bit easier. But I like the pick. This could be my pick of the draft, Green, the stuff I've read and the stuff I've seen so far, to be honest with you.
Interesting. So,
Colin has put, he sounds like he'll be good for winding up DK. Apparently he doesn't shut up. Text that from me. And Colin, let's have a look. Rob has put, he seems a bit handsy, which a few people have said. Have you got any more to add on Ronaldo Green, or do you think we should move on to our next?
No, let's move on to Dominic Pooney.
So, were you happy with his pick?
Oh, I was, yeah. So, out of all the PFF mock drafts I did, Pooney was the only one I picked up. Actually, no, I tell a lie. I did pick up Cowing once. But Pooney was pretty much a consistent pickup by me. Down in, I think, 124, I was picking him. Actually, no, it'll be in at 94, I was picking him up. So where did we pick him? We picked him at 86, a little bit before then. I like this pick. He started 27 games at left tackle over the past 4 seasons, but I think he's going to end up being a guard. He's only allowed 15 hurries over the last 2 seasons. That's 2 seasons, 15 hurries. He's got a 90.4 pass block grade and an 86.7 true pass block grade. It's exactly what we need and where our weakness is, because our pass blocking on O-line has been dreadful ever since Shanahan Lynch came in, because we've emphasised run blocking over pass blocking. So this should give Brock Purdy a lot more time, and that's going to allow him to use the weapons that Shanahan's brought in, or Lynch has brought in, on offense much more readily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll play straight away. So Eric has put that Pooney is his favourite pick. Looks a farce. David has called him a poor man's Graham Barton. It's a great pick. And Simon, good to see you, buddy. He could be the pick of the draft.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they slide Feliciano over to centre and Pooney takes over from Feliciano at guard. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that.
I'm sure you read these, because I was going to say, when I say won't play straight away, it's because Kyle clearly likes McKivitz and Feliciano, but there's a lot of talk that maybe Feliciano goes into centre. Looking at the draft guide here on Pooney, good size, metrics for a guard-only prospect, played a lot of left tackle, but arms and lack of mobility, according to John Chapman, will keep him inside. And apparently he's built more for a gap scheme and uses his shoulder pads more than any lineman in this draft. So I was quite happy that we took an offensive line. A lot of people wanted us to take one in the first round. We did that with Mike Binchy. People weren't happy. So, I mean, like you said, where we got him, it was on most people's boards around there. So I don't think it's a reach. Fair to say.
No, I don't think it's a reach. Yeah, I think we've pretty much picked him up about where he was valued.
So, Rob, you fit right in on the 49er paper.
That's a Brett Sinclair one, that one.
Yeah, that is. I did double check the head in there, make sure it wasn't Brett. And Simon has put there that Pooney could replace Williams in some time. Now, I think Justin...
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Now, Justin, I do apologise that I couldn't come to the meet-up at the weekend. I was entitled to a little bit of time off from the boss man. I was trying my hardest to make it on the Saturday, but we just had too much to do for Kaylee's birthday. Now, David agrees with you. He thinks Feliciano has played more centre than guard in his career. Yeah. And, we said it last week, Lee. Shanahan doesn't put a lot of stock in capital in the offensive line. And if you go and watch his press conferences, he's actually come out and said he didn't think the offensive line played bad last year. And he's obviously got more confidence in Brock Purdy. So I'm happy we picked one up. But, this guide that John Chapman gave us, it's like my bedtime reading, Tracy's like, are you reading that bloomin' book again? I'm surprised she hasn't messaged John yet, to be honest with you, Lee. But I don't think there's... an early shout for a nickname there.
Yeah, the Punisher.
I like it. So needs to work out how to change the card in Super Chat so the wife doesn't find out. Honestly, Mike. But we do appreciate if she's watching. I've just outed you anyway, and Justin's liking that. So we are now at pick number 4 on the night. I'm going to let you pronounce
Right,
his name because I haven't practiced this one.
Malik Mustafa. This is my pick of the draft. This has got me so excited. The guy, when you watch his highlights, he looks strong. He's so quick at blowing up players in the backfield. It's unbelievable for a safety. He's coming off his best season with a 79.6 grade, which is good. It's the higher end of he's the higher end of going from good to great. He was particularly impressive against the run. He's got an 87.5 grade on run defense, and it shows. When you watch him play, it shows. He absolutely blows players up. He's a strong tackler. He doesn't miss many tackles. In fact, I didn't see him miss a single tackle. He wraps up really well, and he's got good vision. He anticipates the player, he watches it, and he just goes in for the kill. And he's young as well. He's not even 22 yet. To me, I'm really excited for this, and I think this is where I'm going to have a struggle with Najee and Gareth over picking the rookie watch, because this is the guy I want. Because I think he is one of the three who could be have a day one impact. Obviously, we've got J.R. Brown, we've got Talanoa Hufanga coming back off injury, but the way he plays, if he can translate that over into the NFL, I could probably see him starting his rookie season. I'm really excited about this one.
So we talked about injury concerns. He did tear his ACL in 2021. So obviously, he's fully recovered. I think he's the type of player Staley covets in his scheme. And I think it goes back to my viewpoint that we're changing the philosophy. Like you said, he's not, he loves to compete, but he's not a ball hawk like Hufanga. He's jacked for a DB, according to Chapman, at his best, running downhill. 0 penalties, as you said, in 4 years. Special teams background, which got me excited because I know your boy Sammy has excelled on special teams, and it's looking like his time as a Niner could be coming to an end. So I was quite happy with this pick. The final note that I had, Lee, he's an athletic player. He's a good tackler. When you go and watch the game tape, he's really good at tackling. And I think that's something that when you watch last year's 49ers team, the missed tackles, especially if they got through, and that secondary, you want them to be wrapping players up and bringing them to the ground. So it kind of shows you do all these mock drafts, you read all these draft guides, and then I didn't even know that college existed. What is it, Wake Forest? Never heard of it before. Yeah. But he's clearly the best player that was there. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I love this pick. He reminds me of Troy Polamalu. I'm going to butcher the name. I get it wrong every time. Polamalu, who used to play for the Steelers. Just watching him play, watching him anticipate where that play is going to come from, and then just blowing up the gaps. He does remind us of him.
So David has put, he plays like a stick of dynamite. Simon has put a cheeky shout in there. If he can be as good as that,
possibly
we would take it. And
Justin, it's very early on, like I said, but yeah.
So everyone remember the original Lion King movie. So this is where Justin's gone with that one. So we're going to have some fun on the podcast. So make sure you tune in. And Mike, I apologise, buddy. If she's watching, though, she can take that apology. And we're joined by Mariah is in the house. It's always great to see fellow content creators supporting. Now, I think, Lee, we've reached the halfway point. So
we have
you got
the halfway point.
The video loaded up?
I do. So, I mean, just to explain it again. So we've got a partnership now with a company called Power Brand Systems. Now, the reason we've got this partnership is because the two guys that got in touch with us are both 49er fans. So we've managed to get this partnership where we're going to basically advertise their product. Their product is a CRM system. If you don't know what CRM is, it's customer relationship management. It's where you can track your potential customers, where you can analyze trends. It also has a social media management portal as well, so you can collate all your social media together and post from the one area to all the different platforms. This helps small and medium-sized enterprises because it's a really good solution. It cuts down on the administrative overhead of the sales, the business development, that sort of stuff. And it's very good too. I mean, we've been using it for 2-3 weeks now, and I'm quite impressed with the functionality it's got there. So we'll take a quick break for the next 50 seconds, and I'll play this video for you.
Ready to generate more leads from your website, Google, and your social channels without having to spend money on ads? Our platform provides you with an easy-to-use communication stream that sucks in free leads from your website, Google, Facebook, and Instagram, enabling you to reply and convert them into customers from your computer or from our mobile app. We'll even turn your inbound calls into text message conversations, so you'll never miss another lead again. Once you've converted a satisfied customer, you can shoot them a Google review request with a click of a button, which will explode your positive reviews and increase your position in search engines. The system will also pull new reviews from Google and Facebook right into your conversation stream, where you can read and reply. Jumpstart your business by getting started today.
All right, Paul, I think this next player, I think it's over to you because he's your boy. Now, this is going to be my first bull prediction of the new season.
So let me load the banner back up so everyone knows what's going on there. So,
So
Rob,
do you want to introduce this pick?
yeah, so this is my boy Isaac Garendo. So he was the running back that I took in our mock draft. As soon as I saw how quick he ran the 40-yard dash, as soon as I saw some of the game tape, he either gets stuffed at the line of scrimmage for 0 yards or he breaks for like 20 to 15. I thought that is a Kyle Shanahan kind of play. So when you look at the strengths that he's got, Lee, he has the size and strength to be a reliable pass protector, ample experience as a receiver out of the backfield, which we've seen what CMC does. Now, pause. I'm not saying this kid is going to be as good as CMC, but I think the knock on Jordan Mason is when he takes a rep, defenses know he isn't going to be a pass catching back like what CMC is, where if you add that skill set to another running back, keeps the defenses being honest. And I think we all agree we need to see less of CMC to keep him fresh. He's very explosive. He's a straight line athlete, likes to get outside, he likes it on the outside, easy angles, up the sideline, good strength and size, bounce off the tackles. So he's built like a Wisconsin back, which my American friends might correct me if I've got that wrong. He didn't get much chance to show down that. He was used primarily, Lee, as a third down back, but this helped him hone the pass blocking and pass catching abilities. He's big and fast. He doesn't run with the violence you'd expect, but he does bounce off the tackles, doesn't run with that imposing style, and he can be, as I've said, a bit hesitant behind the line of scrimmage. But all in all, this was, the more I watched it, coming into the show last week, I thought, right, I can't just stay away from names that I can't pronounce. And I went all in and thought, right, I'm taking this kid. And it's the only one that I got right out of the 14,605 mock drafts league. So, yes, I am delighted that Kyle and John were watching and decided to take a chance on our boy. Anything you want to add? Oh.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I am very happy with this pick. And like I said, this is where my first bold prediction of the season is going to come. Now, I've seen quite a few comments about the 49ers will use him as a fullback. I don't think they will. I actually think they might convert him to a tight end because he's got an 84.1 receiving grade. He is very good at receiving the ball. He's very good pass blocking. He's 6'1". He's the type of build that you kind of look for in a tight end. I think he's got all the makings of being a very, very good tight end. I don't think he'll go to fullback because there's no way the 49ers were going to say to Juice, we want you to take a pay cut and we're going to replace you in the draft with somebody else that we're going to use as fullback. So I think he's going to be a tight end because we didn't target tight end during the draft. And I think this is the reason why. Because let's face it, he's not going to get anywhere near the ball as a running back. Because straight away he's behind CMC, Mitchell, and Mason. I mean, it's debatable whether Mitchell will still be on the team come the end of camp. We might trade him away because he's made of glass, and if we can get a 7th round pick for him, I think that's good business. And then we'll have CMC, Mason, and Garendo.
Yeah. So David,
like I said, CMC gets like 100% of the snaps.
Yeah. David agrees there that he thinks Mason struggles. Now, Justin has jumped in there. I maybe should have said this at the start. I did say that. I do believe I said that he started as a receiver. He ran, like you said, his 40-yard dash in 4.33 seconds. Usually a time associated with quicker wide receivers and cornerbacks.
Yeah.
But like you said, he weighs 221 pounds. And he's got a similar size, speed profile to Raheem Mostert, like I said last week. And won't surprise you, Lee, that the Dolphins and the Texans were among the teams that showed the interest in the run-up to the draft. And I think this could be the best value pick when you look at where we've taken him, what he could add to the offense.
Yeah.
Like you said, CMC's installed as number one. I think we keep Jordan Mason around for his special teams, and we could see Mitchell gone, and we could see this kid come in there and start taking reps as running back number two. But you've got Eric's interest, a sub 4.35 as a tight end. Just a little bit slower than George, Eric. Come on. Club 85 is not quite ready to be replaced yet. But that's an interesting theory. I hadn't thought about that, Lee. Now, Justin has shared a trivia question that I was going to ask. So I'll put it up on there. So have you seen this question, Lee? So there's a trivia question that one player is at least 220 pounds and ran a sub 4.35 40-yard time. So Gurendo's one. There's only one other player in the NFL who's run this time. Can you guess who it is? Now, the answer is in the chat. So don't be looking down.
All right.
There you go. DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah. And as Justin has put there, apparently it's been something that last no other player for the last 20 years. So, yeah, the chat, I knew you'd know the answer, DK Metcalf.
Yeah, so to put that into comparison, so his was a 4.33 second 40-yard dash. Vernon Davis, who we all thought was like lightning for a tight end, ran a 4.38.
Yeah.
So he was slower than Gurendo.
Now, when you watch this wonderful game of American football, speed is key. You know, Tyreek Hill's one of the best players in the league because he's got that quick speed. Now, again, I'm mentioning Hill's name because I've seen it mentioned on other shows. Like, I'm not saying that Gurendo is going to be as good as Tyreek Hill, but you think your mind back to when CMC against Seattle broke on that first play from scrimmage and ran 90 yards and nearly took it to the house. Oh, I can't beat a player like that for me when there's a massive gap created by the offensive line and a back just attacks that hole. And I think it's something we'll see of this kid. But yeah, I think it's safe to say, everybody, that I've got him high on my list for player watch. I don't think I'll get too many arguments from the chaps, but I'm just delightedly, out of the 10 picks I suggested last week, I've got one, and I'm going to stick to that claim. So let's move on, because I think we've shown Isaac
plenty
a lot
of physical attributes. So Jacob Cowing, right? So this pick got a surprise look from me, not because it was Jacob Cowing, because it was another wide receiver. And I didn't particularly think we were going to take one wide receiver, never mind two. So when we took a second, I mean, this kind of spells the end for Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray, especially Danny Gray, because we haven't seen him. To take two wide receiver is kind of, it's not a slap in the face to them, but because they haven't taken the chance. But it does, it's not good. It's not good for them. And already, just looking at the highlights from Cowing and Purcell, when you look at them and go back and compare them to the highlights from Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray, Cowing and Purcell are a whole different level. You look at them, the quality is there. And I can't believe we've picked them up where we did pick them up. And I think that's why we did move up to get him, to be honest, because he was still there. Again, he's a solid route runner, and I think that's what we're looking for Brock Purdy, because he likes to throw anticipatory throws, and if you can get somebody who's going to run the route correctly and be where he needs to be when the ball's going to get there, it's going to be ideal for the offense that we're going to run. Again, just like Purcell, he's got really quick feet and he's got situational awareness. He knows when he's going to be just coming out of bounds, and he'll tip-tap his toes in there, and you don't see this from all wide receivers. Like I said, some of them are just too lazy. But this guy, go and watch his highlights. He is very, very good. He always seems to be where the ball is. He's very quick. He's not the tallest of players. I mean, he's only 5'11". I kind of like receivers a little bit taller than that, but I think he's going to do a really good job. He's a little bit lightweight, mind. That concerns me a little bit. He could be a bit injury prone in the NFL because he's going to get knocked about a bit. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do as well, because I am absolutely convinced that Danny Gray and Ronnie Bell have just blown the chances.
So Justin has put that he set a couple of records. Cowan. Now he's called him 5'8", which makes me feel a bit better when I read this line in a moment. But Justin made me laugh here that when the pick was announced, he wanted to throw something. But as going through the emotions like he did with you guys, he's changed his mind now. And he believes that this guy is really good. Now, I'm glad somebody, and I'm hoping he's 5'8", because John Chapman describes him as 23 years old, productive but tiny. Now, given I'm 5'11", Lee, I don't want to be called tiny.
So I've got to say, when I was watching his highlights, he did look a lot smaller than 5'11", but I've gotten 5'11" from the draft profile.
So, to be fair, David is in the same chain of thought as me. So, Jason Aponte was hyped with this pick. His quote was, "Cowling is the perfect example of speed and route running. He believes he's more suited to the Z than the X. And the two comparisons I've seen is Tank Dell, like David has put there, and Tyler Lockett. So they're the two players that people are comparing these two. Now, I think there was a lot of noise about us bringing back Trent Taylor. But if training camp goes the way a lot of people think it will be, I don't know whether he makes the roster. Because like you said, I don't think we were expecting to take two wide receivers, especially wide receivers, Lee, that could be used in the punt return game. Because they've changed the rules this year, so you have to have two on the field at once. Maybe these two come out as a tandem, and there could be the punt return, kick return, who knows. But again, he caught a pass in 57 straight games, never missed a game in 5 years. Puts more effort into his blocking than most 200-pound plus wide receivers in this class. And apparently his cuts are on a dime. So he's probably a slot-only guy, according to John, but he's put his speed and release. He could play outside in today's NFL. He's a tough gadget kick returner at worst. So apparently he can run the full route tree, which Kyle Shanahan is a receiver at heart. So if you can run the full route tree and do it well, it could be one of those low-risk, high-reward picks. I mean, I wasn't too upset about it. You were on the chat with the faithful. I've seen a lot of talk, Lee, about people shouldn't be taken at this position, and it was a reach. But I think when the dust settles down, overall, I think it was a decent pick at the right time.
So I think my surprise was the biggest surprise on the actual call itself, because I was absolutely stunned that we took another wide receiver. Not that I'm complaining, like I said, once I've seen his highlights and watch what he can do, I'm very happy with that. But I just was stunned that we took another wide receiver.
Yeah, I was.
And I've just checked his height again. When I've gone on, it says 5'11", but yeah, he doesn't look 5'11", and I think that must be a mistake on PFF.
Yeah. So Justin has put there that he's a shifty player, tough as nails, not afraid of contact. And Eric,
so that's the thing you can say about all the players that we've picked up. They're all strong players who aren't afraid of contact. They all play tough.
Yeah. So, David, we agree John Chapman's a legend. He's the reason that you found us. So, much appreciated. It's the first time that I've really done a deep dive into the draft with the guides and going and watching the game tape after the picks. But everything I see about this kid, it's difficult when you go onto YouTube, you get drawn to the highlights because everybody can have a good highlight reel. But
yeah, well, that's why it's called highlight reel, because they're all good. They don't show you the rubbish.
No,
that's the low light reel.
The low light reel, yeah. But David's put there that Taylor should be the practice squad guy insurance policy. So I can see that.
To be honest, like I said, I can see Ronnie Bell or Danny Gray getting released before Trent Taylor, because Shanahan knows what he's got in Trent Taylor.
Yeah.
And now that he's over his injury concerns, because he had a few injuries while he was with us, once he left us, he didn't have those injuries concerns. So it'll be interesting whether or not he gets another injury playing for us again.
So Colin has put rookies returning the punt as scary. He thinks that's Trent Taylor's job. Now, a lot of people, Lee, were frustrated that maybe we didn't invest higher in the offensive line. And the fact, like you said, we took 2 wide receivers. But it shows what Shanahan values as a coach in my eyes. He wants separation to be better at wide receiver. He wants the QB to get the ball out of his hands quicker, which he's given Brock all the weapons to do so. And he keeps saying that the pass blocking isn't just on the offensive line. In Shanahan's scheme, which is well documented, Brandon Ayuk didn't want to block. I think these wide receivers are going to come to training camp, and I think Ayuk and Debo are going to be good examples to say, you want the rock, you've got to block. And if you don't block, but I think it's a good problem to have. You know, the amount of receivers we've got at the moment, teams are calling. You know, there wasn't just talk of Debo and Ayuk at the draft. Apparently teams were calling about Jennings as well, which was good to see.
Right.
Yeah.
So I never heard that one. That'd be interesting.
I heard that on social media.
So yeah, one of the things I was going to say is the draft as a whole. We all have our own personal opinion of when players should get drafted. I looked at, I think, 6 or 7 different big boards, and other than the top 31 to 40 players, every other player varied widely. And I'm talking, you could have had players at 55 on one big board, on another big board, they're down at 130. And it all comes down to what that person particularly values in a player. That's what a big board is. It's your big board at how you value those players. And each team have their own. So we're all sat there looking at some of these thinking, oh, well, that's a reach, that's a reach. That might not be a reach to the 49ers, because that player might be exactly where they need to be in the draft for what they want them to do.
Yeah.
How they value them. It's down to individual valuation of the player. And none of us can claim to be experts in this. That's why we don't work it. That's why we don't get paid to do this as a living, because we don't know. They know inside the building exactly what they want. The whole O-line thing, yeah, I wanted the interior O-line to be strengthened. We've done that. I think it's a lazy narrative to say that Colton McKivitz is a weak link. I didn't think he was the weak link. I think that's based off his very first game where he was utterly shocking. But as the season went on, he got better and better. He was consistent towards the end of the season, and that's his very first season playing at tackle. Next season, hopefully we see progression in him. I'm sure Shanahan and Lynch have every confidence in him, which is why they didn't. Obviously, they did draft a right tackle, but I don't think he's going to play a right tackle. I think he's going to play a guard. So I think his job is safe. And I don't think the O-line is as big a need as what we all thought it was.
Yeah, David's put there, we are in win now mode, so drafting an OT for the future never made sense, and there wasn't really anyone on the board.
Yeah.
Like you said. Now, I'm going to put this comment up because we like to go down a rabbit hole, and you've just said something that piqued my interest. So we're joined by Aaron, 49ers First Takes. So he's reached out.
Aaron.
He wants to do a show. He wants to come on the channel. Now, like you said, we work full-time, families. I've had to cut it down to 2 shows a week at the moment. But Aaron, I have got your message, buddy, and I'm going to get you on our channel. He was good enough to have me on his channel, Lee. So we are going to sort something out. And Kenny, we're not going to talk about the undrafted pickups today because we don't want to spoil you by doing it all in one show. We're just going to focus
be a whole new show once we've signed them
on the 8 players that we've picked. But yeah, Aaron, it's great to see you in the chat. Now, I don't know the answer to this, Lee.
Oh.
Do you know?
Hang on. So thank you very much, Aaron. So tonight's the first time we've actually, well, not used it. We used it last time, but we didn't actually tell anybody it was live. We've only had this ability for the past week. So that is much appreciated because this goes towards helping us cover the cost of StreamYard. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to share now, Lee. So Lee is the man behind the operation. And last week, when I went back to check that the video uploaded, it had in the top corner include paid promotion. And I was like, oh my God, YouTube have added paid promotion to our stuff. So I took a screenshot, tagged Lee on Twitter, was proudly telling everybody, we've made it. We've got a paid promotion. And then backstage tonight, Lee was like, yeah, I had that, Paul. YouTube don't have anything to do with it.
I tell you what, Paul is great at being a social media manager. He's not too good with technology, though.
No, I'm not. That's why I'm glad you're back. That's why I
I
think there
know.
was a show me and Eric were doing. He was like, "Have you got any videos to show?" I was like, "Yeah, we don't do that when Lee's not here, Eric." But anyway, getting back
I'll
on.
have to teach you, mate. I'll have to teach you.
Hey, my setup's come a long way from when you first gave me
It
my
has.
chance. So I'm quite impressed. And my camera went off last week and I didn't ring. I watched 18 YouTube videos. I sent a message to Red Jet Shell and it's back working. I don't quite know how it's working. And the whole house has been warned not to touch that camera. But here we are. And Kenny, we appreciate that. We will be doing a show. So what we do is we do the 49er Faithful UK live on a Wednesday. So tomorrow I'm being joined by a Miami Dolphins fan. But more about that later. But the hope was always once the draft settled down, kind of wanted the Awesome Foursome to be back together. But Nadji and Gareth have got a bit on. Nadji will be joining us next week. So we will be aiming to increase the shows as we go on. But the Wednesdays set in stone. The other days we're just kind of adding to it as and when, if that's right, Lee.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to get Rob's comment up there, just in case you forget about it, because obviously I interrupted you with the start chat there. So you were going to say something about this.
I hadn't seen this. I thought Jennings had signed, but Rob's put there that
I
he
thought
hasn't.
he'd signed as well.
So that's maybe something for us to look into. And Kenny has added that maybe he's, Puny could move from right guard to right tackle. That's maybe something to bear in mind. We will be doing a show on the roster in a couple of weeks' time once we've kind of the undrafted free agents have come in and mini rookie training camp. I think that's right. And then training camp starts. So
Rookie mini camp, you call it, Paul. Rookie mini camp.
So Justin has put there that he hasn't signed, and apparently he told all you lads at the weekends. Now it depends when he told you.
Yeah. Can you not remember what state we were in at the weekend?
So
I'll tell you what, I've got a perfect draft beer pump. So it's like having a beer pump in the house. And I went through a keg of beer myself over the weekend.
Yeah, see, that's it. I'm teetotal at the moment, so it might have been lost to me. Now, we love to digress on this show, but moving forward, we've got another offensive lineman to talk about in Jarrett Kingston, the pick 251. What do you know about him?
Jarrett, out of all the draft picks, this is the one I know least about. I haven't been able to watch his highlights yet, so I'm just basing this off what PFF is telling us. And he's basically a solid pass blocker, 74 plus PFF pass blocking grade in every single season he's played. So he's never had a lower than 74. He's only allowed 17 quarterback pressures, including one sack. And that's from 464 pass blocking attempts this past season. So again, we bring in somebody in who doesn't allow the defenders to get through to the quarterback, and I like that. He's a big lad, 6'4", 305 pounds. Will he make the roster? We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. He could be a practice squad guy come September.
So I didn't overthink this one too much. It was a 6th-round pick in the offensive line. From what I've seen, he's quick. His shuttle speed, which is vital to your offensive line, especially in this scheme, is up there amongst the best. And I think when I looked at the draft guide, Chapman hadn't even done a write-up on this kid. So I thought, right, if John Chapman... No, I'm on a joke. And I didn't know too much about him. And it's something that I will look into a bit more. But my overriding thought was it's a 6th-round pick. I'm not going to overthink this one. I just want to see how it plays out at training camp.
Yeah. So Jarrett Kingston wasn't in the top 350 players on PFF.
So David put there that he's unknown to him as well. Great athlete, though, according to the RAS. And Eric has put there, you've raised the bar.
I think Brett Sinclair does that. He raises the bar. Although he was actually asleep under the bar on Friday night / Saturday morning.
So, and Justin has put there that will we see Kingston beat out Jalen Moore? Doubtful, but let's see. So I think we're close to filling the 90-man, but we said we're not going to dive too much into that talk tonight.
So we've got one player left.
Go on.
Have you missed that? Tatum Bethune.
The linebacker.
Now this guy really impressed me with his highlight reel. Very strong, blows up the run all the time. He's going to be a good run stopping linebacker. He watches the play develop again. He looks for the gaps coming through and he fills those gaps. Some of the hits he's put on running backs at the past few seasons are a beauty to behold. I'm trying to think who he reminds me of. He's got that movement that Patrick Willis had, but he doesn't have the size of Patrick Willis. I don't know about his coverage skills. I'm going to assume he doesn't have very many coverage skills because every single one, bar one, so everyone but bar one of his highlights was stopping the run. He did have an interception in the end zone on one game, but yeah, he's going to be an absolutely fantastic run-stopping linebacker.
So I think I agree with Eric and Justin when I found that page on my notebook, which just put 7th round linebacker, more special teams for me. Larry Kruger has done some stuff on him. I've seen some of the breakdowns that Larry's put out there. He's a hard hitter. He's not as fast as what I would like. Just very slow over pursues. David's put there that he's built a lot like Greenlaw, similar athletic scores. And I'm not sure which part Justin disagrees with you on. Maybe all of it, Lee. Who knows?
And I think he's probably talking about the movement. So I said his movement was a lot like Patrick Willis. I'm going to stick to that because when I watched him move from side to side and then go in, I thought it looked as though he moved like Patrick Willis. Not necessarily as quick, and like I said, he's nowhere near as strong. Patrick Willis was a much bigger back than what he is. But I'm not saying he's Patrick Willis. Let's just put that one there. All I'm saying is he moves a lot like him. Anyone remember his father? Nope.
No idea.
Are we not getting mixed up between Antoine Bethune and Antoine Bethier? Are you not thinking of the safety that played for us? I've never heard of Antoine. I'm right. Yeah, he's getting mixed up there.
It's all right. So, Justin.
That's fine.
Lee won't screenshot this and he won't tag it with Now, I would, but Lee won't. But no, I mean, all jokes aside, Lee, I have enjoyed breaking down these 8. Like you said, I subscribed to Chapman's channel in the run-up to the draft, and I've been trying to watch as much game tape and breakdowns because, like you said, the start of the show, you didn't want to call yourself a content creator. And when I went on People Like Us a couple of weeks ago, I wrestled with this because they reached out and said, you're from England, we want to talk to you about the NFL. And I thought, one of the questions they ask is, if you had a name badge, what would you call yourself? And I thought, you know what, we do actually create content. You know, we've gone all in on the YouTube channel. We've got the podcast. So I think it's a little bit of a disservice to yourself, if you don't mind me saying. I would say you are a content creator, but we're not at the level of the people that we name drop on this show. And the reason we do that, we said a couple of weeks ago, Lee, is credit where credit's due. We're not going to come on our channel and say, this is our opinion if we've watched something that one of our friends has put out there. So that's what we do. Yeah. But that said, I am challenging myself to get better because I know Nadji and Gareth are going to come back refreshed, and Nadji is going to bring the fire, which I've teased. He's going to be on the live for the first time next Wednesday. We haven't got a topic yet. I have a feeling his love of the Chargers may come in the conversation. But yeah, we are kind of getting to that time where we're going to wrap up. So we are getting a few comments in there. Eric has put great show tonight. Credit to everyone for contributing in the chat. And I have to say, Lee, the last few weeks, the chat has been on fire. It's just, you try and star a couple of comments, and then obviously you've got the same as me, haven't you? You can control.
Yeah, the comments come so quickly. I mean, it's a good job you've got that star function. Otherwise, we'd never find them. And obviously, we can't put everybody's comment on the screen. because we'd be here all night. And that's not a complaint, by the way. We're over the moon with the comments. The interaction is what we wanted from the live, which is why we wanted to do the live in the first place, to bring you, the viewer, the listener, into the show. And then that would feed what we're talking about, and it could create a better environment, better conversation.
Well, like you've said, we the pod is established, and then I used to come to the pod, and you're like me, you watch the shows that I watch, but Nadji and Gareth may not have the time, and we'd name check these people. And then when we relaunched the YouTube channel, this is what my vision of the 49er Faithful UK Live was. I remember you coming and doing your first ones, and we're like, there's not much structure here, Paul. And I was like, well, go live, and the comments take you down the rabbit hole. Now, that's why I've got Andy coming on tomorrow. He's a Miami Dolphins fan. He was in San Francisco the same time as you last year. So he was at the Giants game. So the topic of the show tomorrow, Lee, is I left my heart in San Francisco. So as you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of talk of traveling to San Francisco, stuff to do in the city. So we will be live tomorrow at 8 p.m. Nadji will be with me next Wednesday. Is there anything else that I have failed to tell these good people that we've got coming up?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered everything off quite well there, Paul.
Thank you very much. Now, Justin, it is appreciated. Yep, you're right. He remembers when there was 4 of us on the live. Now, he's just reminded me. So somebody mentioned earlier that the reason that they found us was through John Chapman. But Justin actually found us because this time last year, Steph Sanchez had me on to talk all things linebackers. So I still get excited when the big content creators reach out and ask for us to go on the show. I was doing some research earlier, and I remember I came across one of your shows with Larry. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot Lee's been on with Larry Kruger. So if Larry's watching, we would love to have him on the show. Keep those notifications on. Do subscribe. It does help. And if you are watching the channel back, please do leave a comment. It does help with the algorithm. But all that is left for me to say is thank you for watching. Stay safe and go Niners.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in our heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, deep Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't get it twisted, one and all with prime time. John Taylor,